Hello everybody, welcome back. In this video I'm going to talk about feeding the baby with a spoon. I'm going to share some of the experience, some tips, advices, and suggestions to make the spoon, the feeding process easy. Different babies, they have different personalities and they might show different experience in relation with the food. But I'm going to share some of my experience with my son, and I hope you find it helpful for your baby. So in this way, you can find enough information and enough help to make the process of feeding with a spoon easy for your baby. The feeding process, you might start in a different age. You can start at 4 months, but for certain parents it's too early and they wait until 6 months. I actually start feeding him by the end of 4th month. I was consulted with the pediatricians and I started feeding with the vegetables and the fruits that they were considered safe for the early age, like sweet potatoes, carrots, peas, and also I offered him green beans. Eventually I started giving even fruits and other vegetables, meats and dairy, introducing one meal at the beginning, and then slowly we start with a full schedule of feeding the baby. Feeding process is sometimes for certain parents is hard because the babies are picky and they refuse to eat the food. So in this video I'm gonna talk about how to make easy and fun a mealtime for your baby, and what to do in the case that your child refuses to eat. Let's start with refusing the food. There are children that they refuse the food, and there are certain reasons why they refuse to eat. The first thing that I'm gonna talk about is that sometimes the parents, they rush to feed the baby, or they start offering the spoons when too quickly, when they are not, when they have still food in their mouth, or they still need time. And in this way the parents, they rush and they frustrate the children and they refuse the food. Mostly there are parents that they are rushing in a travel, or they are rushing to go at work, or they have other things to do, and they start offering the food and the spoons to the baby very quickly. In this way the child gets frustrated and he refuses the food. You have to take the time for every meal, depends even the age of the baby, and to give them the chance to chew the food, to enjoy the food, and in this way doesn't come frustrated the meal for the baby. The other thing is that we try to limit the mass. We know that when babies they eat, they start the place might get dirty and he's gonna get dirty. We try to limit this mass, and this way we don't allow the baby to play with the food, to smell the food, or to touch the food. These are very important because in this way he's playing and interacting with the food. It allows the baby to smell the food, to enjoy the food, and also it grows their own development and their own creativity. So my suggestion is to allow the baby to play and to interact with the food. So in this way they can develop their skills, they can develop their creativity, and also when they start even eating with their hands, they feel like the food, they can smell it, they can touch it, and in this way it's gonna take another relationship with the food that you are offering. The other reason why the baby might not like to eat is that they still hasn't digest the food that they already ate in the meal, in the previous meal. When your baby doesn't poop, it means that the food is still in their stomach and is still not digest. In this way, the baby might not have no more room in their stomach for other food. The reason and the way how you can reduce this problem is to offer as much as you can fruits and vegetables every meal for the child. So in this way the food becomes easy for them to digest, and also to understand if your baby is sick, because it might be even a sign of a sick and you might need even to consult with your pediatrician. Your baby might not like to food, or he might refuse to eat when he has teething issues. Actually, in the teething process, the baby has a very itchy mouth, and they might have even pain, and they might not feel comfortable to eat enough food. In these days, you offer teething snacks or cold fruits, so in this way it can relieve the pain that they have in the mouth. And also, if your baby is sick, you still consult with the pediatricians to get more help, more professional help in case that your baby has signs that you worry as a parent, and you think is the best choice to send to a doctor. Another thing is that the baby might get bored with the same food, um, especially in the transitions of the baby, because at the beginning you start with a simple baby puree, and at a certain age, the babies, they refuse to eat the baby puree. They like to have more flavor in their food, so you have to introduce more ingredients and to make more attractive the food that you're offering. This is especially for babies when at the beginning they have a simple puree, and then you start giving a real meal. And also at a certain age, around 8 months, they start even eating with the fingers. So in this way, the meal has to be appropriate and has to follow the baby's need, and to make more interesting the process of mealing time for them. This is by adding new flavor in the food, and also allowing the children to eat with their finger. So in this way, they feel more independent, and they can play and find more attractive the process of eating. Another element that might make the baby to refuse the food is that they already are full. Um, we as a parent are very worried about the process of eating, and we want to make sure that our baby is eating enough, or we get worried if we think that the baby didn't take enough food or he was not eating enough, and in this way we force, or we try to give him more food than he needs. Actually, this is wrong. The babies, when they are full, they don't need any more food, and you just don't need to feed anymore. They get frustrated, and also it find boring, and makes them nervous during the process of feeding. So when they are full, you just they refuse the spoon with their hands, with their head, but by just saying no. Or there are babies that they start throwing the food on the floor. So in this way, they give you signals that the baby is full and they don't need any more food. Another thing that I might talk about baby that they refuse to eat is that when they are distracted or from something, like you are feeding and he's watching TV, and he doesn't really pay attention to you and to the food that he's eating. This is not recommended, actually, because the baby don't is not focused on the food. He's not focused on the things that is in front of him, but he's focused on the TV. And in certain babies, depend on the children, they might even refuse to eat, because their brain and their mind is distracted by the TV or by any other object, and he does not eat the food that you are offering. Another thing is that sometimes we ruin the way how we feed the baby by giving too many snacks. The snacks is a good way to, especially when they grow up and they have a snack in their hand, and they are doing or playing, and they can do teething, or they can eat as a snack. But giving too much snacks, it might ruin the appetite of the baby, and they might refuse the food when it comes the meal time. So in this way, my recommendation is to reduce the snacks and to focus your baby in the meal time, so they can eat the whole meal that has all the nutritions and provides them all the vitamins that they are necessary for them to grow. The other thing is that sometimes the parents who are very busy, and they have a method of feeding the baby that they feed the baby first, and then they sit down and eat the rest of the family. This is not recommended. They are very recommended the meal time with the family, so the baby can sit down in a chair and can eat with the rest of the family. This develops his social skills, and also it makes more interesting the food, because the fact that the other people are eating can encourage the baby to eat too. So my suggestion is that even though the parents might be working or they are not at home, try to eat with your baby. If you see that your child is not eating, take a spoon or take your dish and eat in front of your baby. So in this way, you share a meal time together and you encourage the baby to eat. The other suggestion for me is to make a space for your baby. They need a high chair so they can sit comfortable in the high chair, and they can have their own place where they can put the high chair and they can spend time with your family and enjoy the mealtime. In this way, you make very interesting and less stressful the process of feeding for your child, and it encourage also the process of feeding and all the steps of the feeding, like finger food or baby food puree. In this way, your child will be more focused on the food and must give easy time for you to feed the baby. I also talked about the baby that they might get bored of the same food or the same meal. But also I might say that there are babies that they refuse even new food, since for them there are food that they don't know, they might refuse it to eat. At the beginning I was struggling with that, especially when I was offering fruits or anything that was new. He had the idea that that was strange for him and he's not gonna try. The first thing how I was introducing a new food to him is what I was eating the food in front of him to encourage him to eat, because it's something to eat and he had to do it. And also to make sure that the food is not tasting ugly or does not have any funny taste for him. I was just putting a little bit in the lips and to understand that the food is delicious and is something to eat. So in this way I encourage my son to eat the food, and especially the food that was new. Different children, they have different behavior, and there are children that they might like the food, and even though it is new they are ready to eat it. But certain babies, they refuse to eat new foods. Another thing that I can suggest is that I would recommend to make the food interesting for the baby. The baby, they smell the food, but they even like attractive food, the food that they look nice, that they have colors, that they have nice shapes. This makes them more attractive, and it makes them more encourage them to touch them and to eat with their hands. So in my recommendation is to be creative with the food that you're gonna prepare for your baby. So in this way it is more a funny meal, and give them an idea that he's eating but he is playing with the food too.